Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Dope. We're going to do a review of the second episode of Loki. And to join me, I have from the UK, Crystal Hollis. Crystal, how you doing?
Hello, I'm doing all right.
Good. And so our third reviewer, regular reviewer, could not be here this week. David could not be here this week. So instead, we have friend of the show, Eric. Eric, how you doing, buddy?
Hi. Oh, I'm just burdened with glorious purpose. How are you doing?
Oh, it's funny that you mentioned that. I too am burdened with glorious purpose. It's three of us just sitting here burdened with purpose.
All of the purpose.
So before we get into episode 2, because you didn't talk with us about episode 1, give us your quick thoughts about episode 1, Eric.
Oh, I thought it was great. I wasn't really sure what to expect from it. I was a little nervous going in because I knew that this Loki was not really our Loki, the one we had followed through the more recent films, because it was a variant timeline that we were seeing. So I wasn't sure how they were going to handle that. I was very happy to see that they very quickly caught him up to speed and he went on a sort of emotional journey within the episode. I thought it was very well done. And everything with the time variance agency is really intriguing, and I just want to know more.
Yeah, I agree. I really, it's something we were talking about last week when we were talking about this, as just how cool it was, the device of "this is your life," or what was that movie, Defending Your Life?
Oh yeah,
remember that movie?
Mm-hmm.
Where he's dead and he's kind of seeing like a clip show of his life. I loved the use of that mechanism to catch him up from where he is at Avengers versus where he is at Infinity War, which is pretty cool. So we're gonna get into episode 2 here. At the time that I watched it, they hadn't put the title up yet. Does anyone know what the title of this ended up being? Because when it first drops, it just says episode 2.
I believe it's the variant.
The variant. That makes a lot of sense. No, I think that sounds right. I think I saw that floating around on the interwebs today.
Yeah.
And this is everybody, just spoiler warning. We will be talking about everything that happened in this episode. So we start off in the 80s in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. I'm assuming that's where they make Oshkosh Bagosh overalls that I used to wear as a child. I'm not sure, but that's canon now, so that's what we're going with. We see some Minutemen pop up. They quickly get told, "You're not in the right outfit," because they pop into a Ren fair, which I thought was hilarious. And we see them looking for Loki, and Loki enchants the commander of the squad, who quickly takes out most of the squad except for one person before she passes out. The hooded Loki figure comes in, finishes the job, and takes the commander with them. What did we think of this opening sequence? Crystal, let's start with you.
Can we take a moment to appreciate the soundtrack choice of Holding Out for a Hero during this entire sequence?
That has been, I've heard that song 3 times in the last 7 days. Do you know the 3 nerd things that it has been used in? So one is Loki. Do you know the other 2 things it's been used in the last few days?
In the last few days, no.
I know it was in the Masters of the Universe trailer for the new Netflix show.
It was in Motu Revelations trailer. Kevin Smith's Netflix Motu series. They used it in that. The third one is the Guardians of the Galaxy video game.
Oh,
the trailer that just came out. Yeah. They use it in that too. So Bonnie Tyler is just
raking in
up on the charts.
There, apparently.
I loved the opening. I loved how, with where we left off last time in this kind of very office-based environment, just the shift to we're back with the TVA, we're back with the Minutemen out doing stuff in the field. I liked that kind of movement, so it didn't feel stagnant when we started up. And then just this almost bizarre enchantment we see of oh, that person now has green on them, must be Loki, and then they just kind of wipe out their own group of people. and are taken hostage. It's a good like cliffhanging opening. And I just loved the moment too, though, in the Ren Fair when the lady was like, "Some of us need this." Like just some like good little funny moments in there as well. So it was a real strong opener to the second episode.
Absolutely. Eric, what about you? What'd you think of this opening?
So I thought it was a very fun fake out, because this is a time travel show and you open on what appears to be a medieval market, and then all of a sudden, no, we're in Wisconsin, in like the 1980s. It's a Red Fair. I just thought that was a very clever way to open the episode. I also just was very amused. Like I'm geeked out several times in this episode because of where they filmed parts of this, which is in Atlanta. And so I was recognizing a lot of things from going there for Dragon Con for so many years. And I actually, this scene in the Ren Fair, there was a cosplayer that I know, that I recognize. I was like, I know that guy.
That's awesome.
I guess he must be like an Atlanta local. He was dressed as like a troll. Like,
was he the one with the tusks?
Yeah. He goes to Dragon Con all the time. I was like, wait a minute, I know him. So yeah, I thought that was really cool, and the fight scene was well done, and I was hooked. I was trying to figure out what the heck was going on.
Absolutely. So from there, we cut to Loki training, like reading up, or taking a test, speaking with Miss Minutes. I think he's reading a jet ski magazine while she's like quizzing him on like TVA protocol, and she's like this little 3D hologram standing on his desk, and he's playing around, but he's obviously listening because he does know the actual answer. And then he says, "Are you what does he say? Are you a hologram, or are you like real?" He's like, what are you? And she's
are
like,
you recording or are you real?
Recording. That's what it was. Recording or real? And she goes, kind of both. It's just so weird, the little thing. I'm happy that Tara Strong has more of a presence in this. Like, I thought it was just going to be like a one-off in the first episode, but like she's an actual character that gets to interact. So that's really cool to see. Tara Strong getting to like do a scene with Tom Hiddleston. That's pretty dope. And then Mobius shows up and says, come on, give me, is that my jet ski magazine? Give me that. Like, stop playing around. Let's go. Like, it's such a weird opening. It's just such a strange setting. Like, the whole thing is just so bizarre. I just really loved that opening sequence. Eric, what did you think about that next segment?
Oh yeah, I had the same reaction. I loved that Miss Minutes is a recurring presence on the show. Like, I thought it was just going to be, a training video like it was presented in the first episode. But no, she's an actual corporeal being, apparently, that can interact with the agents of the TVA. So that's
I like when she jumped back into the computer when you started trying to swat her.
Yeah.
And she's like, you jerk. Chris, what about you?
So, as I stated last time, I think Miss Minutes is very creepy. I like her, but she kind of creeps me out a little bit. So just watching this interaction was gold for me, especially when he was like trying to whack her with the jet ski magazine. And just Owen Wilson's like, come on, what are you doing? Like, stop, like, give me that. Like, it was just a little more of the Owen Wilson that like we kind of know from other films. So it worked really well. But yeah, I just loved watching him try and swat touch Miss Minutes.
And their chemistry is incredible. Like Hiddleston and Wilson, like their chemistry is so freaking good. And Wilson's so good at doing that, just like casual banter. Like, I think it's kind of his like comedic superpower, his acting superpower is just like the real casual, like, I'm just throwing the line away, I'm Owen Wilson, wow, thing that he does. And so he says, come on, here, wear this, gives Loki a TVA jacket, Loki seems oddly proud. He's like, "Yeah, look at me. Yeah, I look good in this, right?" And he's like, "Okay, whatever." And then they have a little like powwow to talk about what just happened in Wisconsin. At some point, they tell Loki to turn around. I think what is the black woman's designation on the show? What is her name?
It's like B-15, I think.
Is it B-15? Yeah, they're all like letter number designations.
It's B
something. She's like,
yeah,
but she's like, turn around, and he turns around, and they've just put variant on the back of his jacket, and they're all kind of laughing at him. I love that. Like he's like the rookie that they're ribbing. I thought that was hilarious. But yeah, they're talking about the Loki variant. I believe at this point, this is when Loki shows that he can be of use, because they're talking about Loki's abilities, and they mention illusion casting, and he's like, "Oh no, it's like duplication casting or projection or something like that," and explains the difference. Showing that like, "Oh no, you don't know what you're talking about. I am pretty smart. I do know what I'm doing." I really appreciate that he's not always behind, that he does have things that he can inform. I really enjoyed that. And we also see variations. They show, here, this Loki could look different. There's all these different types of Lokis that they show. So I thought that was very interesting as well. Also, I think foreshadowing what we're going to see later on, even though they did make a point to show all the Lokis as male presenting Lokis. They're really, I think, it just felt like a very obvious thing that they were doing, that like there's going to be this twist, this, Loki can look like anyone, so be careful. What did we think of? Well, there's not really much to go over here, but like, what's the next scene after that? It's illusion projection and duplication casting. That's what the two terms were. From there, they go. I'm just kind of scrubbing through real quick. They go to. Here we go. They go to that crime scene. They go to Wisconsin to check out the scene, and then Loki has, they're doing like the crime scene, looking at the thing, and then he's like, "Oh no, like, I see." He says like, "I see something, and in that I see myself." I can't remember the exact line, but then he goes on this like long thing about like how he knows exactly what's going on. The Loki's right outside, give me assurances that I won't be reset, and that you'll give me private audience with the timekeepers, and I'll get us out of this. And then this big grand scene, and then Owen Wilson's like, "He's lying. Let's move on. Reset the it's so good. It's so smart." What did we think of Loki in this situation here? He even says, "My teeth were sharp, but my ears even sharper." I love that line, by the way. Eric, what did you think about this whole sequence with Loki and the TVA?
I thought it was great because, like, for the first probably a few minutes of it, like, I was buying it. I was like, "Oh no, there's a trap!" Like, what did he see? What clue? And then like as it was going on later, I was like, "Oh, he's stalling. Never mind." So I thought that was very funny that even I was like being taken in by Loki's deceptions.
Mm-hmm. Crystal?
See, I didn't buy it. I was like, "Oh, Loki's back on his BS."
I'm glad about that though, because like it did feel like there could be a chance that he would just like have lost his teeth after what he saw in the previous episode. So I really like that he still is mischievous.
He has that little bit of edge. He has that little bit of like, he had that like kind of collapse that we saw in the last episode. And then now he's, kind of rebuilding and trying to figure out like, okay, what strings can I pull? What things can I do to get the things that I need? Before they go to that crime scene, though, I love the whole duplication definition scene because I just love the whole like Professor Loki comment that is thrown out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I love, like, we already have some of that arrogance and that confidence coming back into the character. But again, like, the scene is just brilliant when Owen Wilson is like, yeah, he's lying. Yeah, he's lying, reset it. But I think the scene is also really important because it clarifies what the resets are. We had a pretty good idea from the last episode that resetting was just kind of destroying whatever was going on with the timeline to reset it. But like now we have confirmation that it is literally disintegrating everything in its path, and that it's not
everything
like
that is anachronistic.
Yep.
Right.
That's not supposed to be there.
Yep. So we actually have like a definition for what's going on now, which I thought was kind of clever to include in this way.
Yes, it's a good thing to note, I think, also for what happens later on in the episode.
Yeah, like it's needed for later.
Yeah. So I'm curious. We'll talk about it when we get there.
I really can I just say I excuse me for the weird noises in the background. That's my cat. I really enjoyed the illusion.
The big cat. What
is your cat doing?
What is your cat
attacking the dishes in the sink? Anyway, I really enjoyed the illusion casting versus like duplication clarification scene, just because like it just felt like Loki trying to be relevant. You know, like he's so out of his element with the TVA. Like he's not used to not being the one in charge and with all the answers, and so he wanted to find something he can grab onto and say, no, you're wrong. This is not what this means, you know, and this is why I'm here, you know. Like it just, I thought that really was an interesting character moment at that point.
So it's an illusion. It's the weak trying to, you know, inspire fear to feel a level of control. I see. Interesting. After this sequence, we get this interesting scene with the judge, with Ravonna. I keep forgetting her last name. Ravonna Slayer or something like that is her name. So we see her office. She has like the timekeeper statues in her office. I'm wondering, is she just listening to theremin music casually, like, or is that just supposed to be the score? Because it felt different than the score. Yeah. I think she's just like, I think that's just like her jam. I think she just has like
theremin, operatic theremin music,
right?
As well.
Greatest hits, yeah. And she's talking with Owen Wilson's Mobius. I get the sense that maybe they were involved at a certain point. Like I keep getting that vibe from him that like, oh, but I'm your favorite, right? Like I'm very curious about what their relationship is and if we're going to get explanation on that. But it seems like she is perhaps the only conduit to the timekeepers, to the triumvirate that kind of runs the TVA, which is very, very interesting. And I'm wondering if the timekeepers are even around, if this is just a bureaucracy keeping things up and the timekeepers are like long since dead, or perhaps she's like the sole surviving timekeeper. There isn't really a triumvirate. They're not as all powerful as everyone thinks. I'm very curious about what's going on with that. And maybe I'm wondering if maybe that's what this rogue variant found out. And it's like, oh, it's all bullshit. Let's just blow everything up. Chaos rules, you know, type of thing. It's very, very interesting. And she's obviously uncomfortable with Mobius using Loki, but she keeps getting charmed by Mobius and says, okay, you know, I'll cut you a little bit more slack, but, you know, this is your last chance. Like, get this finished soon. You know, it's just very, very interesting. There's also a weird shot of the pencil, Roosevelt High School. I was in. Maybe it's a comic book reference that I'm missing. I was going to ask you, Eric, if you recall anything. I couldn't figure any significance of that scene. He's like, oh, maybe this is your new like bow type of vibe.
Is what you were saying.
Right, but
I don't know if it was anything specific it was supposed to be referencing. It was more just sort of Owen Wilson's character didn't recognize this from one of his cases. I mean, I don't know if it was supposed to be anything beyond that.
Yeah, that was very odd. That was very odd.
It definitely felt more like an in for him to be like, who's the side dude?
Mm-hmm.
Which is like the comment he made. Like,
yeah, it's so interesting. But Owen Wilson says as he's leaving, hey, if it doesn't work, I'll reset it myself. And then soon as he comes out, we see Loki like, hey, about what happened. This was your first lesson in catching a Loki. Expect the expected. We'll always turn on you. Like, freaking hysterical, just doing whatever he can to save face. And I was like, oh God, I thought you didn't like to talk, and now all you do is talk. And about learning about Loki, like he's like very, very exasperated. And he's just like, look, you're here to help us catch this guy. You're not as smart as you think. We know what you're up to. Yeah, I just love this entire sequence. Crystal, what did you think about the conversation with the judge and the fallout right after?
I also got the kind of weird vibe that maybe the timekeepers are either no more or she's like one of the last ones, sort of thing. Just with like just kind of the weird like flow of the conversation. And just kind of how much power she has as well. Like we haven't seen, or we're not aware of anyone else who has the same amount of power as she does, and she seems to be kind of calling all of the shots here. I thought all the little knickknacks on the shelves were cool. Like, when he was like, oh, I'd love that roller skate in my cubicle. It's kind of like those little details. I always love those. And for some odd reason, the rings from the cup thing I thought was great. Where she was like, use a coaster, and he's like, the rings were already there, and she's like, yeah, you put them there. So like it gives us.
I found that interesting,
yeah,
because like they did like focus on that shot, and that this happened many, many times, and we're dealing with a show that's dealing with time travel. Is this a scenario that keeps resetting itself? Or we like?
I think it might be. Because there's so much resistance for him to use Loki as well. It makes me think like that they've tried to maybe use other Lokis or maybe come across this one before and it hasn't gone well. And he's like, no, I'm going to do something different this time. I'm going to bring him with, or like whatever is different. Like we obviously haven't hit that point if that is the case, but because they like spent so much effort on that little detail, I was like, ooh, maybe we have had an incorporation of Loki into the TVA before, and this is another attempt that we finally get to be kind of, party to.
Right. Do the TVA officers get reset too? Like, does Mobius not realize that he's done this before, and that maybe he teamed up with the previous Loki before? Has no idea of it. Wild speculation, of course.
I wouldn't think he does, with the way that he talks and with the way that he's very, like, as in the first episode, he makes the comment about things happen again and again and again and again because they have to. So I'm not sure he necessarily gets reset, but he may experience the same things again and again with or without variation.
Maybe, but like, I don't know. Like just wild speculation. Eric, what do you think about this whole sequence?
So yeah, I didn't get that impression. That's definitely a possibility now that you're saying that, I think. What I was getting out of the scene was the same kind of vibe that I got off the two of them in the first episode, which is that they have some kind of special relationship, that maybe they used to date or knew each other before being recruited or created, or however these people end up as agents of the TVA.
It sounds like they're created by the TVA.
Yeah, especially since the one pencil pusher guy did not even know what a fish is, so he really didn't have human life beforehand.
Well, but Mobius even says we're created.
Mobius says it later on too, like
oh right, yes,
by the TVA.
Right. He does. So yeah, I was not thinking that Mobius had been reset. I was thinking that he had just spent a lot of time with this lady, that they just had a very close familiar relationship. But now that you're saying that, it could very well be what you're speculating, that like there's a reason we stayed on that shot of the glass on the coaster for as long as we did.
That intentional cinematography, right? Like why like do such a lingering shot on the rings on the table.
Yeah.
Right. You, like that. You don't need that shot to establish that. You just really just need her to say it, but to show it so blatantly, I don't know. Like I said, a wild speculation, could very well be nothing, but it stands out to me as a little strange. Owen Wilson also says, tries to use a bit of psychology on Loki too. After that, where he's saying, I'm banking on. He's just straight out telling it to Loki, like, I'm banking on the fact that, like, you are a less superior version. You're an inferior version of this Loki, and you can't stand that. And I'm hoping that that's going to help me get the information I need out of you. And Loki's like, I'm 10 steps ahead of you. You have no idea what you're talking about. He's like, oh, let me guess. You want to gain audience with the timekeepers and try and, like, take over the sacred timeline? Like, he's like, you don't have any tricks that we haven't seen before, man. Like, he is so, like, not scared of Loki, and it's such an interesting thing because it feels like it really throws Loki off to just keep getting undercut. Like, the look on Loki's face when he just kind of throws that at him is hilarious. From here, Loki's doing a little bit of detective work, right? Like, looking into the files and the history of everything. Is also trying to do some digging on the TVA, and then eventually looks at a file about the destruction of Asgard. From there, he comes to a realization. You get this really great beat, though, this really great acting beat with just, like, his eyes, like, he doesn't actually, like, drop a tear, but his eyes fill with tears, and it's such a good moment. It's like, oh, that's some really great nuanced acting work right there. And then goes back to Mobius and says, he thinks he knows where Loki is hiding. And does this great explanation through this really terrible metaphor using Mobius's salad. And the whole time I was like, oh, that's my salad. Come on. Wow. I'm Owen Wilson. And he's, like, pouring salt. And he's like, so imagine we're at the destruction of Asgard. And I do want to mention that, like, even though he was welling up in the earlier scene about Asgard, when he mentioned Asgard and Mobius says, yeah, I know, destruction, no survivors, I'm sorry. And he goes, yeah, so sad. Anyway, here's what I found. Like, acts like he doesn't care. I love that. The shield, the armor is back up. It's so good. And he's saying, okay, so say we're at the destruction of Asgard. I can do anything I want, right? It's just push the Hulk off the Rainbow Bridge, right? Do this, do all these things. He's, like, showing it by pouring all this salt and pepper in there. It doesn't matter because, and then he grabs Wilson's Josta, which, by the way, is a real cola from the 90s, a very short-lived cola that I think Pepsi put out in the 90s. And then goes over to Eugene Cordero's character. What's that character's name again?
Casey. Casey, and takes his juice box or whatever and then pours it all over the salad, saying, like, it doesn't matter what you do. You can mess up the timeline all you want because no matter what, Surtur is going to kill everybody. And if Surtur kills everybody, it's not going to mess up the timeline. Right. So, so I think he's hiding in apocalypses, which is very interesting. Crystal, what did you think about the sequence? I appreciated the grumpy librarian scene because I appreciated how he was like, I want to see the files for the beginning of time. You can't see them. I want to see the files for the end of time. Those are also classified. You can't see them. And he's just, he's trying to be sneaky and just failing. I also appreciated that character beat where he reads about the destruction of Ragnarok and his eyes just kind of well up. But it's also his, like, aha moment. So the chemistry between Owen Wilson as Mobius and Hiddleston as Loki in the salad scene is just great. Because Owen Wilson is just like, yeah, that's my salad. I want my salad. Like, please stop. Knock it off. And he's like, no, it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna dump all this stuff in here for my illusion. So So I really liked it. I thought it did a good job. I thought it moved a little slowly, but it's a research scene, and those tend to move a little bit slowly, generally speaking. But I mean, it did serve its purpose, and I really loved the whole like he's hiding in Apocalypse's salad metaphor moment. That was gold for me.
Eric, what about you?
Oh, I love this sequence. Again, this was my other big geek out for personal reasons, just because that bank of elevators, that's the Atlanta Marriott. I recognized it instantly, and the ugly carpet that they have there. I'm like, it's Dragon Con. But
It's like your favorite con, right?
It is indeed, yes. And I knew that they had filmed it there because I think that shot was in the trailer for the series. But anyway, yeah, I absolutely loved the sequence with the pushy librarian and just wouldn't give him any information. And I just thought it was interesting. I was trying to figure out whether like he could only look at the Loki file because it was pertinent to his case or because it was his own life, because it's both in this sequence, in this case, like I was curious if the same rules apply to anyone else, like any other variant that gets brought in, or, like whether whether the agents like Mobius know much more than like what's in their own file, because regardless of being created by the timekeepers, they're all just pawns in this operation. And I'm guessing none of them really see the whole big picture, especially if your speculations earlier about the timekeepers maybe not even existing anymore is true. So I thought I was just trying to figure out the rules in this sequence, which I thought was very interesting. And like you, I was also really impressed with Tom Hiddleston's acting, with discovering the destruction of Asgard, but then in typical Loki fashion, just playing it off, be like, no, it doesn't matter. Let's focus on the plan, but he's trying to hide his pain as usual because he's all about illusions. He's Loki.
Yeah, I love that never stops. You never know if your main character is telling you the truth. So you're constantly in this framework of an unreliable narrator. You never know if what you're being told is actually true. Every interaction he has, you never know what's truthful and what's not, which is freaking fascinating. It makes for a very exciting show because you never know what is real with him. So from here, they go to test the theory. So they go to Pompeii on Volcano Day. They don't meet the Doctor, sadly, or Peter Capaldi. That's fine. Or Proto Amy Pond. There's a lot of main characters from Doctor Who in that episode. It's very strange.
Yeah. Volcano Day was one of those episodes.
Yeah. But there's this wonderful sequence with where Mobius is like, all right, well, we're going to be real careful here because if your theory's wrong, we don't want to, mess up the timeline. So like, do you know any bird calls? He's like, what? He goes, runs off and this like frees these goats and starts saying like, nothing matters anymore. You're all going to die. It's just hilarious. It's so good. Eric, what did you think of this sequence?
Oh, yeah, it was very funny. I thought like just Loki was going completely off the rails and just yelling just whatever came into his mind and revealing secrets of the future and whatnot. It was a very darkly humorous scene because of we know these people are about to die and this is going to be the end of their civilization basically. I thought that was appropriate for a show like this because Loki is, he does horrible things, but we love him anyway. Like he's that mischievous scamp, So like the tone of that scene really fits with his character, I think.
Mm-hmm. Crystal, what about you?
What was it? Be free, my horned friends, or whatever. Like I just loved it. He's like, Mobius is like, quiet. We gotta be kind of chill about stuff. And Loki's like, what's that? And just runs out. Spoiler alert, you're all gonna die, kind of thing. But I like the comment that right before they like go on this excursion where he's like, trust the fact that I love being right. I like that little character insight that we had like right before they get to Pompeii. And then of course, like, yeah, it is, you know, then we have the tragedy kind of unfold before our eyes. And then, you know, they pop back and he's like, oh my gosh, nothing happened. You're right. Nothing, you know, nothing was impacted at all. And he was right.
Zero variance energy detected.
Yeah. So I thought it was a neat way to kind of, you know, put the time travel in there while have Loki do something absolutely outlandish and ridiculous while forwarding the plot. So I approve. I liked him releasing the goats the best. That was my favorite moment out of that.
There's a little Easter egg I found on the case file here as I'm scrubbing through. On the case file for the destruction of Asgard, on it says codename Revengers.
Oh no.
That makes me so happy.
I missed that, but that's great.
Yeah. So we go to Volcano Day. They figure out that their theory is right. They start looking for, or no, actually before that, they have this wonderful philosophical conversation. Loki asks about the jet ski magazine. He says jet skis are awesome, and says, you know, most things that humans make are stupid, and most things about life is stupid and doesn't matter. But in the 90s, the perfect marriage of form and function, the jet ski. He's like, have you ever ridden one? He's like, no. And then they have this conversation. It really feels like they're having a conversation about like faith and spirituality. Right? He's like, you know, I believe in the timekeepers. I believe that what we're doing is right, and that the end of, you know, when they figure it all out, they will, you know, the end of time will happen, and we'll all live in peace together at the end of time. And Loki's like, that's ridiculous. And Mobius is saying, okay, well, who's your father? And he's like, the frost giants of Jotunheim. And he's like, okay, and who raised you? He's like, Odin, king of the gods. He's like, you ask someone else about you, they would say that that's absolutely ridiculous, right? You know, but we believe what we believe. I loved this sequence. It really feels like this is markedly different than previous shows, which I think have been meditations on more exterior things. Most Marvel movies, most Marvel shows are meditations on exterior things, and this is a meditation on the interior, on self, on who am I, which I find very, very, very interesting. Hello, Mom. I see you waving. We're having a conversation. I love you. You know, so I found that very, very fascinating. Eric, what did you think about this sequence?
I don't know what to add onto that. Like, that was a very deep insight you had there, Maui. I really did like the sequence a lot. I thought it gave us a closer look into Mobius's character, because we've seen him thus far just sort of doing his job and trying to manipulate Loki to do what he needs him to do. This was getting more into the core of like who Mobius is and why he's doing this job, why he believes so strongly in it. You know, it's not just that like he doesn't, you know anything else. It's like he has developed a philosophy, and I thought that was a nice little peek into like him as a character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Crystal, what about you?
I liked how it kind of did this dual thing, where of course we get the insight into Loki, the insight into Mobius sort of thing going on, but it also is like, it gets in like the audience's head a little bit too, because the fact that Mobius points out like, who's your who is your father and who raised you? Do you realize how ridiculous you sound? Everyone has to come from somewhere, and like you have to follow it back. Like everybody's like follow far back enough origin story. It all sounds kind of crazy. So, you know, it kind of gets, I feel like it gets a little bit, or it can get a little bit in the audience's head as being like, where do we all come from? Like sort of thing, almost in a way. And then just the reference, I liked the reference as well, with the whole like for a brief moment in the 90s things were just like perfect and jet skis were born. Like that's Mobius's idea of perfection for the human race is jet skis.
There's something beautiful about that, right? Like,
yeah,
you know, he has to deal with all this like cosmic stuff, and he just loves the idea of jet skis. It's just like this thing that's just made to just have fun and be happy on, you know, like, and it's very interesting that it's not something that he has ever experienced or necessarily wants to experience. He just wants to preserve its existence.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. I'm so in love with his character. Yeah,
Mobius is great.
Yeah. So they start to look for where it could have happened. They finally figure out, you know, where the hideout could be, and they finally figure out that that Loki, the variant, is hiding in 2050 in Alabama at a super center rocks cart. This Roxanne's form of a Walmart, this gigantic like city large superstore type of thing, and they have to get permission from the boss, from the judge, Ravonna, to take a team to search this, you know, apocalyptic event for the variant. She's extremely skeptical about it, but she does allow it. But trusting this man is not a good idea, is what she says, and also states that, you know, this guy just uncovered a huge hole in our security. I think we should check it out. And like the way she is like trying to get Mobius to not trust in Loki once again sets off alarm bells in my head. I feel like she's covering something up for the timekeepers, or for the fact that the timekeepers don't exist, you know, and that she's just trying to keep everything straight herself. I feel like there's some sort of conspiracy in the TVA that this variant Loki uncovered, and my theory on that continues when we actually meet the variant. You know, I'm just very, very curious about that. So, but that's a pretty short sequence, and then we get to them like setting up for the mission op. He's like, "Well, hey, where go?" And like Loki and Mobius are like, "Yeah, we're gonna go do the thing." And he's like, "All right, but just in case." Gives Loki his daggers, and Loki's like, "All right." And then perfectly timed, B-15 just walks and goes, "Absolutely not!" and just snatches them and puts them in their locker. And it made me so happy. I love Timekeeper B-15. She is amazing, absolutely amazing. And then they get ready to go on the op. What do we think of this sequence before we get into that climactic end game that happens in this episode? Let's start with Eric.
Well, first of all, I appreciated the reference to the Roxxon company, a fictional Marvel corporation that I think we've heard referenced in other projects as well. But yeah, I loved the characterization of B-15, and like she just does not trust Loki and doesn't want to give him an inch, and you know, you can't blame her for that. Yeah, so that interaction was super fun, I thought.
Crystal, what about you?
Again, there's not really much more for me to say other than I just loved. Absolutely not. Takes it, puts it in her locker. Like no one contests what she's done.
Probably my favorite moment in the episode, just because I loved her delivery so much.
Just loved it. It was just perfect timing, perfect everything.
Oh, I just wanted to mention there was one very brief moment that kind of stuck with me that I thought was sort of like a little depressing and bleak, where like they mentioned that like I think in this same year they were traveling to 2050, like sparrows go extinct. And I'm like, that's not that far in the future. It's
I
like,
thought it was 2048 or 2049 was when.
Yeah, it was in the
oh yeah,
2040s.
like it wasn't.
Yeah, it was like
they were
leading up to it.
referencing.
Yeah.
And they kept
It's not that
saying
far from
things
now.
like that were
Yeah.
really close together. Basically, like this is around the time where,
Yeah.
you know, because of what we've done to our planet, where just
Mhm.
events like this will just be more commonplace. And
Starts to
Yeah,
get
so
wild.
Yeah.
So that was kind of, I thought that was an interesting and subtle commentary there.
yeah, I'm trying to see if there's any Easter eggs in this scene with Ravonna. Like, do we get to see like what's on her like computer screen or anything?
Not
I didn't pick up on it.
Yeah,
So.
it's too blurred. Yeah, I was trying to see, but yeah, there's nothing there. So then we get to the Roxanne place. I love. Also, I want a particular shout out to the music of this show because it's freaking amazing. It's so good, and specifically the transition from like them prepping to like the smash cut to like the giant sign outside the Rocks cart. The music cue there was absolutely phenomenal. I freaking loved it. They go in. Loki is paired up with B-15. Mobius wants to go with Loki, but B-15 is like, no, this is my op in the field. I'm in charge, and he's coming with me. You go with them. They look around very quickly. They happen upon a person who is shopping for azaleas because it's a hurricane sale and they're 50% off. B-15 is skeptical, whispers Loki, could this be you? He says, I would probably wear a suit, but yes, it could be me. She approaches this Loki, or this shopper, and it turns out that it is an enchanted person, similar to what happened to the timekeeper in the opening sequence, and the enchantment moves to B-15 herself, and in the variant proceeds to have a conversation with Loki through B-15, and there's this wonderful moment where B-15 does that like turn the head like crooked smile thing that Loki does, and then like Loki stops and then mirrors it and does it back, and says, me, I presume. Like, it's so good. I freaking love it. So there's this, we have that sequence. Eventually the variant transfers to an employee. They continue their conversation. Loki's trying to say like, hey, I'm trying to take over the TVA and rule the sacred timeline. I could use a good lieutenant. You seem capable, and this Loki obviously like just doesn't care. It's like, whatever, I'm doing my own thing. No, thank you. I've thought about it. I've heard what he had to say. I don't want to team up, and keeps going about what they're doing. Transfers into another person, large trucker dude, beats the crap out of Loki. There's a fight with a vacuum cleaner. It's very strange. And we'll stop there. After these three conversations through these different people with Loki, still not actually seeing the Loki, except we see a quick shot of the variant setting some sort of timer up in the security room with all the monitors as they're monitoring everything that's going on. Crystal, what do we think of this? Finally, the two Lokis meeting.
The me, I presume, and then if if anyone, you would be me sort of thing was a nice little coy exchange. The whole jumping through bodies and the whole like, oh, are they dead? No, they usually survive. That kind of just callousness towards the hosts. Nice moments that kind of show us a little bit more of this Loki's character. But the best part of this scene was the vacuum cleaner fight. You say it's weird. I say it's awesome.
I thought it was weird. It was like so weirdly staged.
I have a background in stage combat, and I really appreciate fight sequences that take everyday, like normal or odd items, and they turn it into a compelling fight scene. And I felt it was a compelling fight scene. It made sense for where it was. The use of the vacuum was great. I loved it. It was amazing. I thought it was brilliant.
I contend the Asgardians have super strength, and even though Loki is from Jotunheim and not from Asgard, we do know that he has enhanced strength as well. When the variant Loki takes over a body to also imbue them with the strength of a frost giant, like
I would
doesn't make
posit
sense.
yes.
Doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
I would posit yes. I loved it.
It was a weird sequence. Eric, split the difference.
Crushing
What
my
say
dog.
you?
I thought it was a really intriguing sequence because like this is a power we have not seen Loki use before. Like it caught me by surprise just because I was like, oh, he can do that. Okay, interesting. So yeah, and the acting was really great just to watch. Like like you were saying, the little subtle moments that sort of tip you off that it is Loki, and the arrogance, of course, coming from both of them. Like, no, I'm the real Loki. You're just a variant of me. Like that was just such a perfect character moment there.
Yeah, the response to the me, I presume, was, if anyone is anyone here, it's me. like you're like, I should be saying me to you. Like it's so funny. Like the turns of phrase are great.
I really like that. And in terms of the fight scene, I think anything goes because, like I said, we didn't know previously that Loki could do this. So the writers, I feel, were kind of making up rules as they go along. So yeah, I would be totally fine with the revelation that if he, takes astral possession of a human body, it enhances their abilities, And I thought it was a good fight scene.
All right.
So there, Maui.
You've won this round. Hollis.
Loved it.
So Loki gets knocked out, gets back up. Trucker is fiddling with some reset charges, starts another timer. There's like under 2 minutes left on the timers. And at this point, the trucker, I believe, passes out. And then Loki hears an echo of something he just said, turns around, and the variant is standing there. And finally, we're face to face with the variant. The variant pulls back the hood, and we finally get confirmation that this is Lady Loki. And that was super, super cool. I'm not familiar with the actress. Her name is Sophia Dimartino, I believe, a British actress. I am not familiar with her work. I was trying to see if I could find something that I'd seen her in. I have not. I thought, the little bit that we got, I'm excited to see what she's going to do with the character. There were some fun visual clues, like the broken horn that she has is a reference to what was it called, Agents of Asgard. So that was cool. And she's like, thanks, you helped stall everybody. I was able to do this thing now, and time is up. The charges start to go off, and then time portals open up under all of them, and like, where are they going? And then all of a sudden we go back to the TVA, we see the monitors, and there are branching timelines going off everywhere. And and the guy's like trying to find what the name of the code number is. Like, we have a code 000, blah, blah, and then the guy just takes the mic and says, someone's bombed the sacred timeline. And Lady Loki jumps through a portal, and then we see Loki standing there trying to figure out what to do next, just as Mobius and B-15 are catching up to him, and they see him staring at the time portal. Mobius knows exactly what's going through Loki's head and says, no, do not do this, do not go. And Loki turns around and jumps through, and then credits, which I was not happy about. I was very mad that the hour was up. Eric, what do we think about this fantastic sequence?
Oh, I was super excited for Lady Loki. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the actress either. My one disappointment with this was that they didn't cast a brunette. Because, like, just seeing a blonde Loki, I don't know, like blonde is Thor's color. Like that didn't feel right to me, you know. But other than that, like I'm sure she had like the best audition, and that's why they went with her. But I'm very intrigued to see what she does with the part and what their interactions are going to be like. There's a lot of potential there. I was very excited, and the reveal of her plan, you know, to create all these variants in the timeline and just screw everything up was just, I mean, I figured that was where that was going. I was not expecting the amount of damage in that little time, so to speak, time. So yeah, I think that was really exciting and sets up a lot of interesting plot lines. And then Loki running through the portal himself, like that was, I thought, a great moment where like you could see him standing there hesitating, like, what do I do? Like, you know, do I stay and try to explain myself, or do I go the self-preservation route? And it, you know, he falls back on his old habits. He's like, I have to get out of here. I have to take care of myself here, because they will erase me if they think I'm responsible for this. So yeah, I thought it was a really well done sequence.
Crystal, what about you? What did you think of the sequence?
The reveal was awesome. I'm super excited for Lady Loki. If there's one detail that I neglected to mention before, which ties in with this whole reveal, is when he calls variant Loki, and they're like, don't call me that. There's this almost like antagonistic feeling, like, especially when he's like, you know, what do you want from me or whatever. And she's like, it's not about you. And then just waves and pops off into the doorway. Like there's this hostility there. Like that he doesn't know why she's being hostile. We don't know either, but definitely coming from her, of her being like, ugh, it's a Loki, you know, like, ugh, sort of vibe. And I love it. And I love the disdain. I love how she just kind of takes off. And I was also pretty mad at the end of the episode. He literally goes through the door and it's credits. And I'm like, excuse you. You leave me here?
Yeah. Okay. So earlier in the episode, when Owen Wilson and Loki are talking about, you know, spirituality, religion in a sort of roundabout way, and Mobius is talking about, you know, how he believes in the timekeepers and what they're doing, and Loki makes a mention of like, so there's no free will, and I'm wondering if what Lady Loki is doing is does she think that she's not the villain? Does she think she's the hero in this? That she realizes that like the TVA is keeping the universe from being all that it can be, keeping true freedom, you know, chaos from happening, and that, you know, this is when she says this is not about you. Like I think this is about, maybe in her eyes, freeing the sacred timeline and allowing, you know, allowing people that are normal, people that are, you know, considered weak or whatever, to make their own decisions, to be something more than that, because maybe she views it as there is, you know, if the timekeepers are real, if the timekeepers have all the control, then we don't have any control as beings within our universes or universe. So that's my wild theory going forward. And
I don't think it's that wild.
And I
absolutely agree with you there.
Yeah,
definitely, and obviously, right, this is definitely going to. It definitely feels like this is the lead into Multiverse of Madness, right? The events of this, one would assume, spill directly into what we're about to see in the next few movies. So
yeah, I mean, every great villain doesn't think they're a villain. They think their reasons for doing what they're doing is justified. So I'm sure that that's what Lady Loki, or whatever she prefers to call herself, is trying to do. Like, you know, we could see the disdain that our Loki has for the space lizards that are supposedly running the show, you know, in this universe. So like, you know, that he his reaction is like, what's, that, excuse me, what am I trying to say? The audacity of these space lizards to, control people's fates. In the first episode, he says, like, you bureaucrats will not dictate how my story ends. And I think he's trying, or he or she in this case, that Loki is trying to bring that kind of freedom to the entire universe, like you were saying. I think that was my interpretation as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree, because it's the whole thing of freedom of choice and freedom to dictate one's own destiny has been a very strong theme since like the first 5 minutes of this show. So I definitely see that would fit for what this character is trying to do. And it makes me wonder if maybe they were caught by the TVA before and then got loose, like broke free, like did a jailbreak sort of thing. And if so, I want details on that.
And that's why I think that, like, perhaps, because how did she get this information? That's why I said when I saw those rings on the table, I think that the TVA people, the Minutemen, all of them, I think they get reset too when they learn too much. I think that Ravonna is like resetting everybody, in service of keeping up some big lie. And Lady Loki's trying to expose the truth. And so we're gonna have this twist at the end because like all of this is happening so early, all these revelations are happening so early that it feels like there has to be something more to this. It's too early.
Four more episodes.
Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
But like
there's a lot.
Right, but in WandaVision and in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or Captain America and the Winter Soldier, depending on what point you are at in that, we don't figure out like the big bad until the third act, right? Like we think we know what's going on, and then we realize like, oh, it's this other thing. And so if they're telling us this in the first act, they're setting all the stuff up in the first act, I think there has to be something more that's going to get revealed. So
yeah, considering that the timekeepers, these all-knowing gods of the timeline, we haven't even seen them. I was expecting there would be some kind of twist once like we find out more about them. Either like you're saying that they don't exist anymore, or that maybe they do exist and they don't know what the hell they're doing either. That like they're just maintaining this timeline because they think this is the right thing to do, but they're just enforcing their vision onto like countless trillions of beings. Right. In that case, like, do they have the right to do that? Is Lady Loki correct in trying to free the universe from their control?
Mm-hmm.
Because the questions on that were being asked in the first episode, and he's like, well, who? Like, oh, can I talk to them? Oh, they're busy. What are they doing? Oh, they're just dictating time. And so I definitely have a vibe that they're either not as powerful or they're not there anymore, sort of thing. But this whole who gets to decide which timeline gets to exist and which ones don't has been present. And so the fact that like we're getting Lady Loki this early on, we're getting him running away from the TVA this early on, I'm really interested to see where it goes, because we really, like, in a lot of the previews, we've really only gotten stuff up to this point. So everything after this is really murky and kind of mysterious, which I'm looking forward to, frankly.
Right. And you can't trust anybody, right? You can't trust Lady Loki. So whatever Lady Loki says, we don't know if we can trust what she says. We don't know if we can trust what the TVA says, because I think there's enough things here where I feel like we can't rely on what they're saying to be the truth either. And the people and the people don't even know who exactly they're working for. So I think there's a lot left up in the air. Let's wrap it up here. We're a little bit over on time here. Eric, give us your rating for the episode out of 5.
I thought it was a really strong episode. I would probably give this like a 4.4 or 5. I don't know, somewhere in there.
Okay, 4.5.
Yeah, 4.5. I would go with that.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a good episode. It gave us more details. It advanced the plot. It revealed the Lady Loki revelation. We didn't have to wait until like nearly the end for that So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Okay. Crystal, what about you?
I'm going to give it a 4 again. It wasn't perfect, but it was really, really, really strong and really well written. The pacing was awesome because we covered so much ground in such a short amount of time. The reason I'm giving stuff 4 is because I'm pretty sure some really amazing stuff is coming up soon, and that'll be what I'm reserving my 5s for.
I'm with Eric on this one. I'm going to give it a 4.5. I thought this was a rip-roaring episode of a show, and I'm super excited to see what is going to happen next. But I thought this was very well constructed and deeper than I thought it was going to be. And like I said, I think it opens up a lot of possibilities, and I'm hoping that they keep making these bold choices and it doesn't start to meander, because it feels like these 2 episodes really, the first one's like, all right, we're gonna give you some setup, and then the second episode they're like, all right, we're gonna blow everything up, right? I didn't feel that with Falcon and Winter Soldier. I didn't feel that with WandaVision. This feels like it is moving fast. We covered a lot of ground in that second episode, and I really hope we don't lose that momentum, because potentially this could be not only my favorite Disney Plus Marvel show, this could be like one of my favorite things in the MCU ever. Like, I am like really, really, really happy with this thus far in its first act. So yeah. All right, we're gonna call it there. We'll talk more next week. I'll be back. Eric will be back with me, and in about an hour here, we're gonna be talking about Disney songs, specifically Disney villain songs this week. We're going to start our brackets, so we're going to talk about Disney villain songs, and be sure to check that out. Anything else y'all got coming up y'all want to plug?
Next Monday you'll see all 3 of us, or at least hear one of us and see 2 of us, if you check out Kevin Pollak zooming the movies for Coraline on Monday at 7 Central Time.
Yeah, and this Saturday you will see 2 of us, Maui and I, in movies.
3 of us. We're all 3. Right. So, yeah, all 3 of us in both things. Yeah,
we're going to be doing Contact for Zoom.
Contact. Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's funny that all 3 of us are in both of us.
That is kind of funny. I didn't notice that. I'm sorry, Eric.
I'm sorry, Crystal. I forgot you were in both as well.
It's okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, we all do so many of these.
Mutual that.
Hard to keep track.
Yeah. All righty. Have a great one. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Bye.